In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a simple t-shirt graphic using basic shapes and simple elements that can be modified to a multitude of different purposes. Um, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to base my graphic around my home state of Minnesota, and so what you'll need is a kind of main header title, which will be Minnesota in this case, a slogan. Minnesota's slogan is Land of 10,000 Lakes, and then a couple of graphic elements like the state, tree, or the state's established date. Um, yeah, so let's get started. For this one, we're going to create a circle by holding down Control so it constrains its proportions. We'll just hit P on the keyboard to center it in the page, and we're going to make this pretty large here to fill our workspace. With it still selected, if you hold down Shift and click on the corner anchor point, and while you still have it held, if you right click at the same time, you get a copy. So we're going to scale that in. Let's see, we'll just kind of do a loose placement of our elements here. So for this graphic, I want to have my main title be in a stencil font, and I have 3 here to choose from, and I kind of like this standard serif stencil font. So we're going to grab that and duplicate it over here. We'll grab the state, and we're going to put it about here. Let's see, we're going to use the slogan, but we're going to type the slogan on a path. So if you grab the smaller circle and hit plus on the numpad to duplicate, we're going to just scale that up slightly. We'll make that line red just so we know we're going to put text on that path. We're going to duplicate it again and scale it up. So this distance here is going to be the height of our text on these paths. So we're going to go about yay big. I'm going to go over and select the text tool. And if you hover your cursor over any path, as soon as you get that indicator, the like curvy line, you can click on the path and you'll be able to type text right on that circle. So we'll just type our text, land of, and I'm only going to do the first half of the slogan for the top part, and I'm going to do the 10,000 lakes on the bottom half. So we'll just scale this up, and I want to switch to this font. So we'll just scale this up, and we're just going to eyeball it so it's roughly touching the top edge here. And then using the offset at the top here, if you click and drag in the middle of that, you can slide it along the text along the path. Once you have it roughly centered vertically, what I like to do is if you click on the ruler up here and drag down guide, you can start to see that it's not quite centered, so we're going to just use the arrow key to nudge it closer. And so that looks good. Now we need to do the bottom text, so we'll do the same thing. Grab the text tool, hover over the path, and type 10,000 lakes. And in order to get it to read correctly, we just use these mirror vertically and horizontally buttons here to switch the text to the inner side of the circle. And so we want to switch to the Roboto slab. And to get the same font size here, we'll just select our font up here, click up in the font size here, and just copy. And then do the same thing, select the font down here, click in there and Control V to paste the size, and it'll be the same size above and below here. So we're going to do the same thing to center our bottom text. Get it centered in here. That looks good. Next thing we want to do is take our main text here and we want to center it in the inside of the circle here. So select the circle and hit E and then C on your keyboard, and it will align horizontally and vertically. Now I want the text to be much larger, but we're going to adjust the spacing here so that it's not so far out. So over in the text properties dock here, grab the spacing here to adjust that. We're going to bring it in pretty close. And we're just going to squish that in so it's a little tighter. Scale it up. Alright, so we'll just once you have that in place, now we want to take our top graphic here, the state, and we're going to do the same thing to center it in the circle. And we'll just hold down Shift to constrain it vertically when we bring it back up. And we're just going to just play with the size of it so it kind of fills in the space. I think that looks good. Now want to put our little slogan here, a little established date. We're going to switch that, and we're going to bring in the scaling again. We'll center it in here, and then just scale it down. Again, play with the placement here a little bit. Okay. So one other thing I want to do is I want to add some kind of graphic lines in between the top and bottom parts of the text here and the outer edge of the circle. So we're just going to duplicate a couple of circles to place in here. So just plus on the num key or numpad, bring that in, duplicate it, bring that out, duplicate again, that, we'll duplicate one more time, we'll just make that a little smaller. So now I'm going to grab all four of these new circles and I'm just going to combine them into one solid shape, like so. And I'm going to just scale it out a bit to center it a little bit between these two lines here. So now that we have basically all our elements, I want to make the Minnesota part stand out a bit more. So I'm going to create a rectangle and I'm just going to center it in the circle again by hitting E and then C on the keyboard. And we'll just scale this in. And when you create just a new object from it with a shape that has anchor points, it remains editable in terms of like the anchor points here. So if you, with the rectangle selected, if you hit 2, you'll switch to the shape tool here, and you can click and drag on the corner anchor points, and you'll be able to round off the corners. So I'm going to give them a slight rounded corner. With that done, I'm going to give this a solid white fill for now, and we'll just bring the text to the top just so we can see it. Alright. The next thing we want to do is to play with the spacing and layout of the text on the paths here so that we don't have such large gaps. So grabbing the text here over in the text properties, just going to play with the spacing of the letters and the words themselves, just to kind of space them out a little bit more. That looks good for the top, so we'll do the same thing for the bottom text. Just space them out. And a little bit more. Yeah, that looks good. Alright. The next step, I want to add my colors to this larger outer ring, and I want to give it a gradient, so I'm just going to duplicate this square here, and I'm going to give it a gradient between these colors here. So with that selected, I'm just going to hit G on the keyboard. I'm going to switch to the fountain fill, and then hit F11 to edit that fill. I'm going to add a extra node in the middle. Let's see, I want this one to be this darker color. Same thing for this one. And then this one, I want to give it this orangish. Yeah. Once I have that done, just click OK. Now I'm just going to apply the color to that, and I want to select the inner circle and the outer larger circle and just combine them so that now we have an open area here. Let's see, so the next step is I want some elements to be white, like I want the state and the established 1858 to be white. So in order to see it, I'm just going to throw a black rectangle behind so we can see what we're doing here. So I want these to be white, and I'll just take that off. I want these to be white. I want this text to be white. Okay. The last thing we want to do here is I want to give a separation between these circles and this white box here. So I'm just going to select that box and go over to the contour tool, and I'm just going to increase my contour to give the appropriate spacing that I want. So I think that looks good, so we'll just hit Control K on the keyboard to separate the two objects. And this is just my trimming object, so next thing I want to do is select the gradient circle here and just using the Pathfinder tools up here, buttons, I'm just going to trim that. I'm going to do the same thing for these circle lines here. Trim that. Once that's done, you can get rid of the trimming object. And then because I want this to be a t-shirt graphic, I want whatever the t-shirt color and fabric to show through on the letters. I'm going to select the Minnesota here, and then select the white rectangle, and I'm just going to combine the two so that it's essentially a transparent see-through the text here to whatever's behind it. So you can just change the colors to see that. So alright, that is essentially the process for creating this kind of simple layout for a t-shirt graphic or any sort of logo graphic that you might need. You can obviously change the various elements, but once you have them in place, you can modify them to whatever you need. Yeah, you can create an infinite number of simple text-based t-shirt graphics using this kind of layout. One last thing you'll want to do when you go to export your graphic for uploading to a print-on-demand site or whatever is you'll want to get rid of these red lines here that you use to place the text on. In order to do that, if you click on the text here and hit Control K, it'll separate the text from the actual path here. So you can just get rid of those when you are ready to export your image. There. So